You have the opportunity here to save this farm, to help it grow and expand, protect your community, or you can sit here and just say goodbye to another farm, because I can tell you from my experience and what's going on in the state, that is exactly what you'll be doing to this farm.
All right. Moving on, we are going to a conceptual, non-binding discussion regarding the renovation of an existing building to add a restaurant and associated parking in support of an agritourism operation at 230 Mammoth Road, map 6, lot 21, zoned AR1. MHO Acquisition LLC is the owner and applicant. Folks could come up.
Do you want this on screen or?
All right. Good evening, folks. This is a conceptual discussion, so the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Laura Gandy. I'm an attorney with Divine Miller and Branch in Manchester, New Hampshire. I'm here representing Mack's Apples, and I'll have Jason introduce himself as well.
I'm Jason Mills. I'm the business advisor for Mack's Apples, and Kyle, the owner.
And we also have with us tonight, as part of our conceptual discussion, the Commissioner of Agriculture, Shawn Jasper, who's sitting in the back. And I did send a packet, and I also have paper copies, if I could pass those up.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I do have it as well, just so you know, the digital.
Okay.
Yeah.
God bless.
So the purpose for tonight is a conceptual discussion regarding a proposed farm-to-table restaurant at Mack's Apples. And I wanted to use this time basically to review with the board the agritourism statutes and some of the waivers that we are seeking as part of our site plan review, and to get a temperature of the board as far as how they feel about those particular waivers, and to go through some of the agritourism statutes. I'm not quite sure if the board's had the opportunity to have any instruction on some of these statutes and interplay with those with agritourism, and in particular, the site plan for Mack's Apples. So in the packet that you have in front of you, I did put the statutes in there, and I did number the pages on the bottom. That hopefully will make it easier for the board to follow along. The first statute that I have in your packet is RSA 2134A, that defines agritourism.
My bad. I'm sorry. The light was bad. I'm just trying to increase it. And obviously, that's not the switch.
There we go. Oh, there you go. Jeff, that was great.
In case anyone wants.
So the, on page,
I apologize for that.
oh, no worries at all. On page 1, you have RSA 2134A for farm agriculture, and I highlighted section 5 at the bottom, and it describes and it gives the definition of agritourism, which means attracting visitors to a farm to attend events or activities that are accessory uses to primary farm operation, including but not limited to being provided a meal, making overnight stays, enjoyment of the farm environment, education, and then it goes on and describes what agritourism is. And the main point of pointing out this statute is to familiarize the board with the statute, and also to point out that it does state providing a meal, and we are asking for a farm-to-table restaurant, which obviously provides meals. The second item in my packet is a letter from your zoning administrator dated August 26th, 2025. That's on pages 3, 4, and 5, and that is going to another attorney that helps out with Mack's Apples. And that was at the request of Attorney Edward J. Ford to determine whether a farm-to-table restaurant would be classified as agritourism and therefore a permitted use based on the agritourism statute. And you can see on page 4, I highlighted your zoning administrator's determination. That determination states the proposed farm-to-table restaurant is a form of agritourism and therefore is considered a permitted agricultural use in the AR1 zoning district, subject to compliance with all applicable building, site plan, health, and safety regulations. So the town has determined that the restaurant is a form of agritourism and therefore is allowed on the site. The next statute is RSA 672:1, which gets into the planning and the zoning board's role in helping farms succeed with agritourism.
Laura, could you clarify, did you say the town has decided that it's agritourism?
Yeah, so you have a use determination letter by Nick Connor. That's
you.
just the use.
Yeah,
Who said
correct.
that the farm-to-table restaurant is a form of agritourism that is allowed. And I highlighted that on page 4.
And for the public, who's Nick?
Nick Connor is Chief Building Official and Zoning Administrator.
Thank you.
So for clarifications, he's saying it's a use in AR1, that's all he's saying?
Correct.
Okay.
See, a permitted use.
In AR1, that's all he's saying?
Yes, and that's what I'm trying to clarify. Agritourism is a permitted use in AR1. Thank you. Go ahead.
So the next one is 672:1, and this section of the statutes now gets into the role of planning and zoning boards as it relates to agritourism and attempts to assist farmers in succeeding in their agricultural and agritourism business desires. So 672:1 is a declaration of purpose, and it says, and I highlighted 3B, there's a whole bunch of stuff there about agriculture makes vital and significant contributions to the food supply, the economy, and the environment, and the aesthetic features of the state of New Hampshire, and the tradition of using land resource for agricultural production is an essential factor in providing for the favorable quality of life in the state. And then the last sentence, and it goes on again, and it talks about agritourism and how it's undertaken by farmers to contribute to both the economic viability and long-term sustainability of the primary agricultural activities in New Hampshire. So the legislature has attempted to assist farms by allowing for agritourism as another means of keeping farms viable and sustainable. The last sentence in 3B, agricultural activities and agritourism shall, and I circled shall not be unreasonably limited by use of municipal planning and zoning powers or by the unreasonable interpretation of such powers. So again, the legislature is trying to set the tone for how they want to see agritourism be handled at the local level. Even though it's governed by the state does recognize the role of local municipalities in regulating some of those uses. And again, on 672:1, it talks about agritourism being traditional, fundamental, and they, the state legislature does not want to see the towns unreasonably interfere with agritourism as far as farming activities. So that's 672:1, and then the next page is page 8, which is 674:32A, and it talks about presumptions. And again, we have already, this town has already made a determination that it is a permitted use, and I believe that this statute, 674:32A, was one of the statutes that was referenced by your chief building inspector, Nick Cardner, when he was making his determination. The next page is 674:32B, and that talks about use and activities. And again, Section 2 is what's applicable to the proposed site plan that we're discussing tonight. And it's saying that municipalities may regulate site plan approval. So it's not a shall. There are some towns that allow agritourism just to happen, but the legislature is giving each municipality the opportunity with the word may. So not saying it's required, that towns may regulate it, and it gives you some other guidance. It may be regulated to prevent traffic and parking from adversely impacting adjacent properties, streets, sidewalks, or public safety, and then it goes on. So that's where it's allowing the municipalities the option, not requiring municipalities, but allowing them the option to regulate if they see fit. The next statute is 674-32C, and this is going to become important when I get into the site plan. This talks about waivers. This board is obviously used to dealing with waivers. Your regulations spell out different waiver criteria for your site plan and subdivision regulations. For agritourism and agricultural uses of land, you have a different standard that you are required to look at under 674-32C, and I highlighted that. So Roman numeral 2 talks about if you're, expanding uses, or if you're doing something different, you can be required to undergo some site plan review. And then it says, and this is the key portion of it, however, that in circumstances where the literal application, and that means the regulations that are being imposed, your site plan, your subdivision, your zoning, so where that literal application would effectively prohibit an agricultural use or activity allowed by the subdivision, or would otherwise be unreasonable in the context of an agricultural use or activity, in accordance with the provision of 672:1, 3B, and we already talked about that, the Board of Adjustment, Building Codes of Appeal, or other applicable land use board, which is this board, the planning board, after due notice and hearing, and this is where you get into the may and the shalls, the statute says shall grant a waiver from such requirement to the extent necessary to reasonably permit the agricultural use or activity, unless such waiver would have a demonstrated, so it has to be a demonstrated adverse effect on public health, safety, or the value of adjacent property. So this is a little bit different from what this board is used to. You now have a state statute governing how you are to view waivers for an agricultural use or activity, because agritourism is really dealt with at the state level. So that's 674:32C. And the last statute is 674:32D, that talks about agritourism permitted. And again, it's just the legislature's intent that they don't want municipalities to be prohibiting it where the primary use is for agriculture. So that's agritourism. Again, really just gives you a flavor of the state's role in regulating agritourism, which brings me to the site plan that we're here to talk about tonight. It's Mack's Apples. Everybody, I think, in town is familiar with Mack's Apples. Just a brief history that's on the front page of my packet. In 1732, John Mack came to Londonderry, New Hampshire from Londonderry, Ireland, with his new wife, Isabella Brown. The area then known as Nutfield contained a plot of land belonging to Matthew Thornton, later to sign the Declaration of Independence. The Macks settled, grew potatoes and other crops, raised cattle, and later grew apples. Today, Mack's Apples, also known as Moose Hill Orchards, that name we can talk about another day, is a farm of approximately 400 acres, 100 of which are dedicated to apples. Mack's Apples Pick Your Own has been twice selected as the People's Choice Award winner in the Best of New Hampshire edition of New Hampshire Magazine. Everybody's familiar with Mack's Apples in the Mack family. It's a staple to Londonderry. I think one of the prime things people know about Londonderry is Mack's Apples, and we are looking for this board to support Mack's as he continues with another adventure to sustain and keep his farming activities viable. So you have at page 12, you have the site plan, and that's what's up on the board, and I tried to color code that as far as it is going to relate to our waivers that we will be asking when we come in front of the board for site plan review. So you have some color-coded, and I color-coded it just to make it easy. I color-coded the red is where the restaurant is going to go, so that's going to be approximately 4,000 square feet. That's the back portion of the building that's in existence. There's no physical expansion to the building whatsoever. There will be cosmetic changes to the building around the back, but no physical expansion to the building. So that's what's in red. You do have the green, that is the outline of the agricultural farm pond. That is my understanding, according to our folks at Mack's Apples. They believe that was constructed for agricultural use back in the 1950s and has been used basically to pump water out to help maintain the farming activities there. It was man-made and it is there. And you can see where the black line is, that the farm pond is actually on another piece of property owned by Mack's Apples. That's 37 acres. The piece of property where the restaurant is going to go is approximately 8 acres. But you can see the pink line is the Conservation Overlay District buffer. This town does not make any exceptions for agricultural ponds. Some other communities do, saying if there's a man-made pond for the purpose of agriculture, it's not considered a wetland. The town of Londonderry does not do that. So you can see the CO2, the Conservation Overlay District buffer is in pink. There is a building encroaching in it, and part of the existing farm stand is also encroaching in it. You also see in yellow is the parking area. So you have 2 areas of parking in the front. I highlighted that is paved parking area, and the other one to the right is not paved. So that's a gravel parking area. And it's my understanding, after talking to folks at Mack's Apple, that some of that area that's where the unpaved was the former Mammoth Road, that the Mammoth Road used to go that way through the back of the farm. So that has been continuously used as a farm, as a road for many, many decades. So with that, we are asking for 4, potentially 5 waivers that we're just trying to get a temperature on the board. The first waiver is for the CO2 district, the Conservation Overlay District. Again, as I explained, there's a farm pond. It's a man-made pond that technically qualifies for wetlands. If you look, I did put at page 13 that there is an exemption under the Clean Water Act for the construction and maintenance of farm or stock ponds. So, and again, other communities, they make an exception. The town of Londonderry does not. We would be asking for a waiver for that type of exemption, so not to be subject to the Conservation Overlay District boundary. That would be our first waiver. Our second waiver is landscaping. We are asking for a waiver to the landscaping. It's a farm stand. We already have landscaping. We have our, trees. We have the farm stand. We are asking for a waiver for the landscaping, and I did put at page, I think it's 15, on page 15, the section 310, the landscape and design standards, we're seeking a waiver from that. And your landscape and design standards actually mention orchards as part of what they feel is, appropriate landscaping, and that's what the town likes. They like to see orchards, so we have that. So we're asking for a waiver to the landscaping design standards. That's the second waiver. The third is the parking. It's my understanding that town staff, they want to see that unpaved area of Mack's Apple be paved. We do have a portion of our parking area paved. We are asking that not be applied to us and that we be granted a waiver, that it will be a significant cost to the farm to pave it. That would have a big effect on how it's going to look from Mammoth Road. It's going to affect the look of the farm stand as it exists now. There is a provision, and I have that also for you on page 17, that talks about an alternative surfacing, that the planning board may permit a complete or partial substitution of an alternative surfacing for a paved surfacing area on a parking lot, and then it goes on that provides some more information to the board. We are in the process of discussing that with town staff. If we can't come up with something that town staff would be agreeable with that alternative surfacing, we would be asking for a waiver to the parking, or the requirement to pave the parking area, and that's on page 17. And the next one is on page 18. That is and we have not asked for this yet, but I wanted to bring it to the board's attention, would be a traffic impact analysis. I did put that in there, that's section 3.14. We believe that we satisfied, or we meet the requirements of a minor analysis with the traffic letter that we have presented to town staff. I know town staff is still discussing that with us, but if they were to require us to do a full traffic analysis, that would be cost prohibitive, but we have met with, our traffic engineer has met with NHDOT or has had a conversation with NHDOT, because that is a state road. We are in the process of working with NHDOT to determine what, if any, concerns that they may have, and we'll take that information back to the town to see how that lands. But that could be another potential waiver that we would be seeking. And that's all I have. So that's a lot, but we would like to get some feedback from the board regarding the waivers and just
Sure.
the overall feel of the project. And I failed to mention that it's 99 seats. I think when everybody was here before, God bless you, when everybody was here back, I believe in July, there was a conceptual presentation that was not with me, and there was a talk about maybe it being 250 seats, 200 seats. We have cut that down dramatically, so it is 99 seats, and we have received approval from the fire department regarding what we need to do as far as safety concerns for the sprinklers for the 99 seats. So it would be 99 seats, and the entrance to it is in the back. You can see where the red is drawn. There's a little bump out in the back, and that's going to be where it will be, we'll make it look pretty. That is the entrance area there.
Thank you. All right, I will start with staff. Kelly, John, do you have any input at this time?
No, right now.
Just to acknowledge that the applicants proceeded with a design review application, so as mentioned, that's under our review. But should you have any questions through this discussion, we're happy to answer.
Sure.
It's one thing I would like to clarify, though, too, so Laura's correct. We did meet with the applicant a number of times. It's not what staff wants, it's what the regulations require.
Correct.
For everybody's edification. It's not what Trotter wants, not what Karen wants.
Yeah, John, I was going to address that as well.
Thank you.
Those are, those regulations are based on that, and
Thank you.
and staff members are the ones that advise us. So it's not what staff wants.
Correct.
All right. So I'm gonna bring it to our board here. Board, do we have any input?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Let's just unpack this a little bit.
Mr. Chair, can I interrupt for 1 second? 'Cause I do have Shawn Jasper. I don't know if you wanted him to speak now. He did want to say a couple of words.
Let me go
My
through
questions are
the
going to
board.
actually address
Yeah,
this.
let me go through the board
Okay.
first.
So please, okay, so it's apparent that the state is, you're really kind of, there's rightfully legislation for agritourism. I would like to know what the state is providing us, the town, to support this, because and this is going to also, I have a lot of concerns. I'm just going to throw it out there. It's conceptual. This is a conceptual discussion. So you're going to take this feedback, you're going to implement it if you so choose or see yourself. And I addressed this at the last conceptual. There is a lot of, that's a restaurant. I don't know what the business hours are going to be. I don't know if it's going to be year round. Right now, Max is a crown jewel. I said that last time. I still think that. I don't see why you haven't really made a compelling case of landscape restrictions. So I would want to see that. Why the pavement, why you're not going to pave the entire pave it all. I don't know. I don't understand the why on that. For me, if you're putting 99, I'm glad that it came down from 250, because I do have significant concerns if this thing is open at night. It's a state road. There's no lights. I see safety issues with coming out of that establishment, coming in, having it very, dark and such. You're coming up a hill anyway, and even during the summer months when I'm, when we're at the ice cream stand, you have to go up that hill, to get out. It's a fairly, it's not your fault, but it can get a little hairy. So I'm going to say this. I really don't like hearing cost being a prohibitive. I want to understand why. So that, I don't think that argument, I think we can probably, you can find out why there. I also want to understand where the state is at and how the state is going to support, agritourism at our, in our municipalities. And that's great, and I support it, but I also think that the state really should also address some of these, kind of emerging issues that either they are an issue or they're not. And we're not going to be able to find out if they're an issue unless a study is done and facts emerge. I can say it's an issue, you can say it's not. Where does that get us? Nowhere. So, Mr. Commissioner, if you want to kind of come up and address, I do appreciate you being here. Thank you for making the time, and
Thank you. For the record, I am Shawn Jasper, Commissioner of the New Hampshire Department of Agriculture, Markets and Food, and I've been in this position since the end of 2017. This is an issue that is very important to the state of New Hampshire. The state is not going to provide anything. The state has determined, and this board can only operate really under state statutes. You have regulations which are allowed by the statute, but the law of the land really starts with the U.S. Constitution and then the state laws and Constitution. So there's nothing that's going to be provided here. I can't help but notice that over here in this room are the pictures of Mack's apples. Agriculture, quite frankly, and I hate to say this, is to a very large degree a dying entity in the state of New Hampshire. We are losing farms on a regular basis. I understand the position you're in. I was a selectman in Hudson for 17 years and served as a board's representative to the planning board. I was also a firefighter for 20 years as a call firefighter. And I bring that up because you had a very large apple orchard that is now a very large development. I was there that night that the barn burned, and that was probably 30 years ago or better. You had 4 large orchards. Now you're having Elwoods is going to be developed. You're down to 2. You have on your letterhead, you have an apple. No farm is going to survive of the magnitude that you're talking here. There are some that can survive without agritourism. But every farm in this state has to diversify. And if you want that, and Londonderry has a proud heritage and a proud of it, you have to work with those people. Now, I'm going to tell you that they're being more generous than I would be. And as a member of the legislature for 23 years, and the last 3 as speaker, I was in the legislature when most of these statutes were passed, so I have some pretty intimate knowledge of them. It's not a question of whether agritourism is allowed. Agritourism is defined by the state as agriculture, farming. It's part of marketing. There are 8 categories that the legislature has laid out that said, here are the things that are agriculture. Marketing is number 5 in the statute, and agritourism is part of that. So the question was this agritourism? And in fact, it's stated serving a meal. And you have your
I got a question for you on that, Mr. Commissioner.
Sure.
Serving a meal is a 99-person sit-down restaurant. Now, I feel as though agritourism is something that Mack's Apples is very much participating in right now, today, along with other farms in town that I think is a very important part of keeping these farms alive. Serving a meal, to me, is a place where you can walk up and get small food, not sit down at a restaurant, because a restaurant is a commercial item, whether it's farm to table or not. I'm really having a hard time wrapping my head around, and even the way it's worded, serving a meal. not sitting down at a restaurant.
You know,
Help me understand that a little better, please.
well, I think that anything you look at in statute, you can't go to every single circumstance. Serving a meal. You know, it doesn't say picking up a meal, serving a meal. To serve a meal implies that you are going to be sitting down and having a meal. And that happens all over this state in many of our farms that have agritourism. They have weddings, they have venues, they have barns where the meals are served. This is not a new concept. This is something that is happening all over the place and all over the state and has not been questioned as part of agritourism. And so, you know, I think that is pretty much a settled question if you look globally within the state.
Mr. Chair, has anyone questioned that this is agritourism?
I'm questioning if it's, I'm certainly questioning if a restaurant is considered agritourism.
At the initial, when they came, there was a question about whether it was.
Correct, and I still don't think we have addressed if we feel as though this is agritourism.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Mr. Commissioner,
Yes.
I've been to a number of these venues where there are vineyards now, and Sorvino and some of the others. Are those agritourism?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
You know, the thing about agritourism is that it is part of the operation. You know, it's necessary. We've been through a big issue that many of you may have read about with Vernon Family Farm in Newfields. I mean, I started out years ago working with the Vernon family on that, and we finally gotten through that issue. I started out working with Kyle over a year ago, and I've attended at least 2 meetings with your staff over the last 2 years about these issues, and you now do have a determination. You know, and so this really is if you care at all about eating, having agriculture, the town needs to be supportive of these things. Now, one of the things that I feel that the applicant is being much more generous than I would be is that I would be looking to apply 674-32B, existing agricultural uses and activities, that says any agricultural use or activity which exists pursuant to RSA 674-32A may without restriction be expanded, altered to meet changing technology or markets. Agritourism is part of markets, or changed to another agricultural use or activity as set forth in RSA 2134A, and it goes on. Every single time I have been involved with a town and we've talked about expansion, every single time we're talking about a physical expansion of a building. There is no physical expansion on this site. This is what is actually allowed here. You know, expanded to meet changing technology or markets, or changed. Expanded means just that. And so when you go down, and the applicants have gone down and said, and have considered this to be a significant expansion. There's not a significant expansion here because there is no physical expansion. But you have a right and a duty to be concerned about the traffic. There are, you know, obviously a leach field is needed. There are things that this town should be concerned about. You should be working, in my opinion, with the applicant to deal with those issues. A full-blown site plan is cost prohibitive. A full-blown traffic study, you know, you're going to end up with another vacant farm ultimately. I know that most of the land is under conservation and it's not going to be used for anything else, but some of it will be. But you'd be putting another business out of business. This state was known for apple production. We've been slaughtered by, you know, production in other states. You've got 2 left, and this was a town that was really built on apples. So I'm asking you to recognize that, in fact, agritourism means serving meals, and that you can work with the applicant. You can address your concerns without putting them out of business. I worked from the start with Kyle, telling him you needed to work with the town officials, that needed to work with the fire department, make sure the building was able to be converted to a restaurant. And, you know, I think he's done everything that can reasonably expected of him. He is in a very difficult business. He bought it, and, you know, he doesn't have a legacy as the Mack family did, but for them even, it was impossible to keep going. None of the family members were willing to take on that responsibility of that farm that's been going since the 1700s. You have the opportunity here to save this farm, to help it grow and expand, protect your community, or you can sit here and just say goodbye to another farm, because I can tell you from my experience and what's going on in the state, that is exactly what you'll be doing to this farm. if
So,
you don't
Mr.
work with
Commissioner,
them.
I've got a question for you, just for some clarification. You want us to work with the applicant, you feel as though a site plan is not warranted, and this is something that we can do without a full site plan.
I think you can. They have the
Not
park.
only do you want us to put a restaurant at a farm stand, you're asking us to not go through a site plan for a restaurant.
For an 8,
So I can understand what you're asking.
I am asking you to work with the applicant. They have the parking. What I've suggested, and I've seen some of the documentation that, you know, haven't got to that point, and I've told Kyle, I said, you can't have the restaurant open at the same time that you are in peak season with pick your own and the farm stand going on. There's got to be some reasonableness there. You have a certain amount of parking spaces, and you have a certain amount of customers already. So there's got to be compromise there. I think it's reasonable to put some restrictions on hours of operation when he is in peak season. I think that certainly a minor site plan looking at, you know, the egress to the back of the building, to the placement of the leach field, some of those things. But I don't think that you need a full-blown site plan to do that. I know how expensive they can be, and I think you can work with them on that. I think it is reasonable for you to have expectations. I'm not saying just say, hey, let them do it as it is, although frankly, I think if push came to shove, but court cases are very expensive, I think that the courts would say there is no expansion here because you're not changing the footprint of the operation.
Commissioner, my wife does weddings, so I've seen dozens of these remade facilities around the state. And I will say, I'm in favor of the use, okay? But what I have seen going around the state and going in these facilities and talking to the owners is there has been significant changes done to bring them up to code. Significant things that had to be done even within an existing footprint. Grandfathering clauses all went away. And it's all really based around life safety and around their insurance. So, I mean, while I understand what you're saying, and I am in favor of the use, it is, you know, it's bigger than, you know.
Let me be clear, and I've said to Kyle right from the beginning, you have to bring that building up to life safety codes. I mean, there's no exemption from life safety codes from this. He has to do everything to meet the fire department's concerns. And I say that not only as commissioner believing that, I say that as a firefighter for 20 years.
And we agree. These facilities, and you've seen them, make significant investments. So back in the napkin here would be really hard, and I'll leave it at that. I'm sorry,
Mr.
Tony.
DeFrancesco.
I asked him if I could.
Yeah, we're good, we're good. First of all, thank you so much for coming and taking the time out of your day to help us with what I perceive is a major problem that we have before us. We have a farm that bisects our town on a major state thruway with, I wouldn't even try to guess the number of cars, automobiles, vehicles, ambulances that come zipping around that corner, going downhill at night in the rain and snow all year long. You didn't know that about Londonderry. We have snow all the time. And just like the state, it's interesting that you mentioned that Londonderry has an apple on its letterhead. The apple is the thing. And you're worried about it disappearing. And what does the state have? the old man of the mountain, still on the letterhead, still on the signs. So Londonderry and the state will always work together, and will always have to work together. But this is a problem. I am not either in favor or not in favor of this project. What I am in favor of is the oath that I swore when I took this position, which I take very seriously. And to tell you how seriously I take it, we just got, and for those of you in the audience and those watching on TV, we just got at the last meeting the brand new code book that has all the RSAs in it. And I spent all weekend checking for revisions, finding out why the pages didn't match up between the last one, which was red, and this one's blue, and trying to figure out where the changes were and preparing for this meeting. So I take this very seriously. And I will tell you that right now there's a problem. And one of the biggest problems is that in Londonderry, anytime there's a change of use, the site plan is opened up. And it's opened up for a lot of reasons, because stuff happens after 75 years and need to be upgraded. Things change, laws change, regulations change. All those things change. And I personally, one person, would be in favor of a full site plan so that we can have our staff take a hard look at what's going on, what's there, what's not there, how is it there. And by the way, we heard about a pond that's not a pond, but it is a pond, but it was only for watering. Well, the kids feed the ducks there. I've seen people pull fish out of there. I don't know how that happens. That must be a miracle. Another thing that Londonderry has in common with the state. And so there's a lot at stake here. Then there's the matter of fairness, right? We have the state, which on many occasions, and I'm really short, but I have really broad shoulders. The state, for decades now, have given us unfunded mandates. And now it gives us agritourism, and we're supposed to bow down and genuflect and stop all the rules and regulations that we have. When in fact, that's not what it says in the rules and regulations, and that's not what was presented here tonight. And you know what I'm going to say, because the case law that was mentioned specifically says the legislation intended to require municipalities to allow agritourism within their borders. At most, they evince the legislature's general intent to support traditional agriculture and agricultural activities, and they demonstrate legislative intent to allow reasonable local regulations and ordinances. That's the fact. That's the case law. And you know better than I do, you can have RSAs all over the place, but until it's been tested by law and the case law has been posted, that's when it really becomes something. And so in this case, we need to, the word is reasonable, be able to work together. In order to do that, we need to know what's there and what's not there. And it's to me, one person, it's a change of use. If it's 12, 100, 250, it's a change of use. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much for entertaining my comments.
Anything else from the board? Yes.
In general, I am positive. I lean positive towards this. I do think that, one of my best friends lived on Putnam Road, right across the street from your farm in Hudson, and I went to Alvin. So, I understand the challenge that farms face. And I am leaning positively towards this, but we need to see what is going to happen there. what this is gonna look like, what changes are gonna be made, how you're going to address the things that need to be addressed, right? Site plans cost money, absolutely, but they're done for a reason. And that reason is so that we know what is being built in town, and so that everyone is on the same page as to exactly what's happening there. And without a site plan review, one party knows exactly what's happening, and we're kind of hoping that that's what's happening. So, again, in general, I'm favorable to this, but I don't think it's fair to expect to not go through a site plan review.
Mr. Chairman, would you allow me to
Of course.
respond to a couple of things? I mean, first of all, we all took the same oath as to the laws and the constitutions. It's not to regulations. In the laws, what we're looking at, you may not like the laws, you might not like the way they were enacted, but the laws are the laws, and that's what all town local ordinances come from. And so I certainly understand the concern about traffic. I think the applicant is willing to work with you on that, and I would certainly encourage them that there probably does need. I drove by there tonight. It's dark. There needs to be more street lighting. I've personally, and through my business, have paid for street lights on poles to provide that lighting. So that's not something that's unreasonable. I think that knowing what's on a site plan, now there's a big difference between a full-blown site plan and a minor site plan. Because if you want to know the location of the buildings, I know there's been a site plan there. Some of that's already been done. But if you're talking sending people out there to survey 8 acres where you have a very small area that's going to be used, I think that's an undue burden. And, you may have the opinion that a restaurant in this circumstance is not agriculture. You can litigate that. You have a zoning opinion on that. I think we should be beyond that and talking about what are the things that need to be done. I'm concerned about traffic. I think Kyle's concerned about traffic. How do we get there? Is it going to take a traffic study that could cost tens of thousands of dollars, or are there ways that people can work together to find out the information? I am asking you to work with the applicant to get there. And not bankrupt him in the process. But I do think, you may not like what the legislature does, and I will tell you there are many times when I don't like what the legislature does. I didn't always like what it did when I was there. But that doesn't mean that that's not the law. And so I'm just asking you, please, to work with the applicant here, find a reasonable way to keep this farm operating. And this is most likely, what can save it, because quite frankly, with the weather we've been having, the apple crops, I'm still in the process as commissioner where we gave out, millions of dollars when we had the drought a few years ago. We're in the process of giving out more federal funds because of the weather in 23 and 24. Farms cannot survive in this climate that are doing outdoor agriculture, and even dairy farms are dropping. The former commissioner was a dairy farmer. They just sold their cows 6 months ago. They couldn't continue. I just heard of another farm closing. They're closing all over the place. And I think we saw through the pandemic how important local produce can be when we have a shutdown in our transportation networks, and we need to be doing everything we can to keep our food supply local. I thank you for your time and for your indulgence, and I wish you the best of luck in dealing with this.
Jake,
Mr. Chair?
could you
Yes, sir.
stay
Oh,
for
hold
a
on.
second?
Sure.
I
Ann,
just
go
want to
ahead.
mention that we have Merrill's Farm up in the North Village area, so don't forget about that one.
No, I'm well aware of that. They're in apples and poultry,
Yes.
but they're struggling as well.
I know, I support them.
Yeah. They are struggling.
Thank you very much. Can I ask
Yep.
a question from the applicant? Is it going to have a liquor license also?
I believe the intent is to do that.
Just curious.
Mr.
Yes,
Chair. So first of all, I am in support of this. I think it's a great thing. I've seen what they've done in other states. I know that some of the other orchards in town have started to diversify. I can tell you just by looking at this, that the few concerns with some of my other board mates have stated, the fire safety, the septic, the paving, the drainage, the traffic, but I think those all can be handled. Having built and owning a restaurant myself, I can tell you that it's going to probably cost you double what you think. I see what you tried to do to kind of put it in there. I understand you don't have to build infrastructure, but bringing this whole building up to code, I think it's going to be a lot, especially with a commercial kitchen. If it was me, I'd actually build a whole separate building over here, because that farm stand, I think, is like a tinderbox. I mean, you get one grease fire, I mean, the whole thing could go. That's what concerns me the most about this project. I'd love to see it. I think it's going to be very successful. I think you might need to bring on some other partners maybe to invest in this if it's too much. I think it's a good idea. I don't love the idea of being in the old farm stand, although it feels nice. I worry about the safety aspect of that. So those are my concerns and my advice. But yeah, I agree with the others that, a site plan is needed. When you open up one of these things, you open up Pandora's box. That's why it's almost easier to go, use a different building, and that's just my opinion.
And so I want to finish up one of my thoughts, please. The pond, non-pond, I can't remember what you called it, I'm sorry. Whatever it is. It's water, it's wet, there's living things in there. It's never going to it's never seen as much pressure as there's going to be on it once there's cars on that all winter long with all the salt and all the runoff and everything else that's going on there. There's got to be something done with drainage there, and there's got to be something done with impervious, pervious, whatever you want to call it, to protect that pond. That pond is a living organism. Whether someone dug it with a shovel or whether it happened naturally, to me, it doesn't really matter, because right now, it is what it is. And I was told that one time when I got my ears boxed in at a conservation commission up in Bristol, New Hampshire, when I was trying to do something up there. And it was, I got the old snapshot in time metaphor. And so it's wet. Something's got to be done about that. How are you going to do that? Well, you got to open up the site, and you got to do drainage calcs, and you got to do it to protect that thing. And I don't know how else to do it other than with the site plan. That's why the site plan is there. You got the checklist. You got everything's done. Instead of you do one thing and then somebody comes along and says, well, what about this? And then all of a sudden it's what about this? Just do the site plan, do the checklist, and everything gets taken care of all at once, and then we'll decide at this level whether there's going to be exceptions or not, depending on what you find, what you don't find, how you find it. Thank you.
I'll try not to
Mr. Rugg,
repeat anything.
Mr. Rugg, I think, had his hand
Good,
up.
sir. Please proceed. Want me to go?
Yeah, you can go.
I'm not going to repeat anything, so I'm going to try to be quick.
That's gonna be quick, too.
Yeah, I mean, my wife was friends with Mr. Mack. I mean, Mandy Mack, for over 50 years and everything. You all know where the leach field is for the farmhouse?
Yeah.
You know where it is? It's across the street. All right, that tells you how unusual, a lot this is. Yeah, I have to agree with the fellow board members. It's got to be a fairness type of thing. We keep talking about what's unreasonable. I mean, the definition is not guided by or based on good sense. I think we're applying good sense. And I get the cost thing. I understand. But every applicant can walk in here and ask us to say the same thing. Thank you.
Mr. Rugg?
This kind of brings me back probably in the vicinity of 30, probably close to 40 years ago when Andy Mack approached the planning board at that time. I'm dating myself. And Andy wanted to put in an ice cream stand. And there was a fairly good, public debate on, and there was no agritourism, statutes or anything, But, I think he at least wanted to, it wasn't the agriculture from the property itself, it was agriculture that he purchased to produce the ice cream. And a lot of that was to support, And the town was probably smaller than half the size it is right now, but people were very supportive of Andy. And that's where the board took the risk, and we decided, it was really a town thing, and supported agriculture, because we knew agriculture was important. Because I think, as Mr. Jasper has indicated, we have to eat. And New Hampshire imports probably about 90 to 95% of its food. It comes from outside of New England. So I think we have to start thinking closer to home. I mean, I love my garden. I have my garden. Hopefully, some of the products that is raised at Mack's can be used in the production of food. But I think we have to look at the bigger picture. And I mean, the whole survival of agriculture probably goes back 50, 70, 80 years ago. And that's where the farms started dying off, because there's plenty of milk at that time. Now, where is there a dairy farm? You have to go to Vermont. And Vermont supports their agriculture. So I think generally this is a good idea. I think we need to go through the site plan process, because there's a protection of both public safety and public health, to make sure the operation performs, to the town's liking and fits in also. Max has always fitted in with the town. And we have to take a long, hard look at our agriculture.
Mr. Penta, I think you had something?
Yeah, and I'll be quick, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Yeah, so I guess in the spirit of partnership, if that's what we want to kind of call that, it's the law's the law. The state, obviously, Commissioner Jasper definitely made it sense. It's the law. Have to follow the law. The presentation itself, while thorough, and I appreciate what you provided, Attorney Gandia, it was, it speaks to me a lot of RSA. You're throwing RSAs at us. You're throwing what I am looking for. I am a very simple person. What are you trying to do? Why you're doing it? What's the impact? What's the result? How is it going to benefit Londonderry? 5, 6 slides. I'm going to go in on a soapbox. I don't understand why more people do not come to this board with 5 to 6 slides, trying to understand what we're trying to do, why what the waivers are. This is a lot of information to kind of take in. I want to advise you appropriately. We want to partner with you. And yes, I love Mack's apples. My kids love Mack's apples. I want this to work. I really do. I want also to provide the safety and all the other kind of items that kind of go with that. You're on a state road, so we totally get that, and I think Commissioner Jasper provided some good insights about lights and such like that. If we can kind of work that way. What are you like? What are we trying to definitely do? What's the we have problems. How are we going to solve them? You present us how you're going to solve them. We may say, yeah, that's a great idea, or we could be like, oh, nope, that doesn't fit here. It's complicated. I get it, and I appreciate the time. I appreciate you coming in for a second conceptual. And I think, and I do want to kind of end it on kind of that note, but take this time to really kind of like identify what we're trying to do here. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anything else from the board? Yes, sir.
I'll be quick. I'll say that I'm for it. I think we've heard a lot of times of people wanting restaurants come to town, and I know we want it on Main Street, but I'll take it on Mammoth Road if that's where we're going to get it. But I do agree with most of the board. I think a site plan is going to be useful for us to determine if, it's going to meet the standard that we require. So.
Yes, sir.
Being on the master plan committee as well, one of the big things in this community is preserving the agriculture in this community. We did a land use map. One of the dots overwhelmingly was around the area of Mack's Apples in the town common of do not touch, and make sure that we preserve this area of town. I think it would be an absolute just disaster if Mack's would fall on hard times and all of a sudden not be able to have a viable business there. So I do support this plan. I do think, though, there is some safety issues with that road. I think some of the lighting and things need to be fixed, and I think that's something we can work out. But I want to see this go through, and I want to see a viable business there, and I think that's very important to this community.
I just make some closing comments.
1 minute. Anything else from the board? Laura?
Thank you, and thank you for everybody's comments, input. There's a lot that's been talked about. I just want to, kind of regroup. And Jeff, to you, the reason why you have all of this is when I worked here, there were, stuff came to us for agritourism, and there was nothing. Like, my understanding, the planning board never had any type of education on agritourism, and activities. So this, for me, was to help you folks, to give you a framework in which you could operate so you understand the statutes. I haven't seen that given to you before, so my point in giving that to you was to set the framework for you, so when I'm speaking about stuff, you can understand when I'm saying may and shall, that's coming here for you, and that's why I did that. And there's been a lot of talk about site plan, no site plan. I know Commissioner Jasper's like, no site plan. I said, yeah, I hear you, but what did we do? You have a site plan. So there is a site plan. So you have a site plan. We submitted a site plan for you at great expense to Max Apple. That's one page of that site plan. It's under design review. So it's not like you don't have a site plan. You have a site plan.
We don't. That's the problem.
Well, it's under design
Because
review.
it's we're conceptual right now.
But I think town staff said a formal an application for design review with the site plan has been submitted with traffic information and everything else. So we did do that. So despite, the going back and forth, you have a site plan. We are undergoing a site plan review for you, and I could have postured up, but I had a feeling that this input that we're seeing from the board was exactly what we were going to get. So you have a site plan. It's there. But what we're asking for is some relief with some of those waivers, with some of those requirements. We're asking for that is where the reasonableness is coming from. We're being reasonable. We're giving you the site plan. You may not have it right now, but it's with the town staff. It's under review, so you have the site plan.
I'm sorry, but that sounds like you did us a favor. You didn't do us a favor by giving us a site or giving them a site plan. That's not fair to say it like that.
No, what I'm saying, there was a discussion about whether
That's
or not.
what you just said was that's not fair.
Okay.
That's not fair to this board, and it's not fair to town staff to say that. You're not doing anybody a favor. You're meeting the regulations of the town.
The state statute says may, and the town is requiring that we do, and we are.
Thank you.
Again, it was a may by state statute. The town said yes, and we are. And as far as life safety, I know you mentioned that. That is something that we've been working with the fire department on. We have had multiple conversations with Brian Johnson about that. We are working with him. As far as lighting, we do have a lighting plan, so we did submit that as well. The stuff that's talking about production, Mr. Ogg, you asked about production. That is Mack's intent, is to provide food that's produced on the farm to be signature items on the menu. So we are doing that as well. And I'm just looking for clarification, and maybe town staff can help with this, is as far as the use determination, as whether to not, the restaurant is agritourism and is permitted. It was my understanding that that issue was decided and that we could move forward without having any further discussion on that. We do have a decision from your zoning administrator. If that's not accurate, I would like to know that, just so we can understand the board's position moving forward, but I thought that was a non-issue.
Before we get to that, before we do that, can I just do this one more time? So I want the general public, because people actually do watch these on TV. They might not be watching them tonight, but they do watch them later on at their own leisure when it's snowing out and it's a pajama day and they have nothing else to do.
They watch it online.
That too. Yeah. So I want to be very clear that the agritourism thing that comes down from the state, for lack of a better term, is very pointed. However, in several places, and I already read one of them, which was Forrester versus the town of Henniker in 2015, that I read to the commissioner, that he fully knew what that was because he was in the room when it was litigated. But it also, in another place, in 674-32C, it says that nothing in the subdivision RSA 32B shall exempt new, reestablished, or expanded agricultural operations or activities from generally applicable building and site requirements, such as dimensional standards, setbacks, driveway, traffic regulations, parking requirements, noise, odor, vibration, restrictions, or sign regulations. So there's a lot of places in these RSAs where it says, yes, it's agritourism, and yes, we're going to work together and we're going to try and make it happen. But the presentation and this paper made it sound like that this board had to get on its knees and kiss the book and the state and say, "Oh, do whatever you want." That's what it sounded like to me, because nowhere in the presentation did it happen to mention the two things that I just cited that said the town doesn't have to yield anywhere. It just has to be reasonable.
Can I respond to
One
that?
minute, Jason.
I feel like we're getting off track here. This is rapidly seeming to turn personal. I don't know why.
I don't think it's.
It's not personal at all.
But
It's not.
and I'm not saying, I'm just saying tensions are getting up there. I don't, we're getting off track from what we're talking about, right?
I feel like we're getting talked down to. I don't like it. I don't like
no,
it.
no, and I understand what you're saying there, Tony, because I kind of felt that too. But I think if you look, like, quantifiably, right? Does this meet the definition of agritourism? If our zoning person says it does, then, you know, it probably does, right? We want a site plan. You say we're given it, you say we're getting a site plan. It's in design review. That's the standard process. Good. That's what we want to hear, right? I feel like we're kind of going in circles here a little bit, right? We've gone through the conceptual review, right? Unless there's new stuff coming up, I feel like we can kind of wrap this conversation up a little bit.
Okay, and I apologize if I overstepped my bounds.
No worries, no worries. I just wanted, I think we needed to take it down a notch a little bit.
Yeah, and I think in summary, I think a lot of us are in support of this use.
Absolutely.
We have concerns going forward, and we'll work through those concerns. So I don't want you to walk away from here saying, "Oh my God, the town doesn't want this." No, I think the town wants this. I think it would be great for the town. There's just concerns, and if you can make that guy over there, John, happy, then we're typically happy.
And
So
then tell us how to do that.
You might be the first, but you know.
Hold on.
I'm telling you, I will lead the parade. If I will lead the parade to support, get this thing supported and get it done, if we can meet these requirements. I will lead the parade, because I think it's a good thing, but we've got rules.
And we don't know what we don't know. So if there's something with the drainage and it's 2 feet off rather than 1 foot off, those are the things we can, it's hard to say that, oh yeah, we're gonna waive everything. We can't,
To
we're
be
not at
very
that
clear,
stage.
it's not making John happy, it's making this board happy.
No, I know, but I'm just saying,
be
for
very
me,
clear, 'cause
when
it's like
he's
the third
happy,
time tonight.
I know that,
Can
it's
I
a,
just?
yeah.
It's not about someone's feelings.
Correct.
It's about the regulations.
Correct.
okay? So
Thank
we
you.
can just
Let's
put
stick,
kibosh
stick
on
with the facts.
You want me to address this use question?
Yeah, I do,
So-
because I'm still not, I know it seems like I'm the only one, but I still just can't wrap my head around how a restaurant is considered agritourism. So I really need help
So back in
understanding.
July, when we first started this conversation, staff hadn't analyzed this either. The process for making a zoning determination is going through the zoning administrator, and Nick Conder, our zoning administrator, evaluated the criteria of the state law and came to the conclusion that this is agritourism, and that is a permitted use by right in AR1. In my professional review of it, I agree with that determination. I don't view it as this board's role to make that determination. That's why you have a zoning administrator to do exactly that. That doesn't fall within your purview, in my opinion.
I
So
mean,
to me,
ultimately,
that's
at the end of the day,
like
this
that.
whole thing falls on us. So while we have a zoning administrator, I do feel as though, to a degree, it falls in our purview.
Well, if he had said it's not permitted by right and they did a variance, then it would go to ZBA and they'd get relief from our regulations and then come to you, and you would have to review it as such with said relief.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I'm trying to understand.
Yeah.
Are you looking for an additional opinion above the zoning administrator to? To make sure we're making the right decision?
Personally,
is making the right decision?
one person, I feel as though this is not agritourism. It's evident that the board does feel as though it falls within agritourism. So
I
if
think-
that's the case, then so be it, and I'll agree with it. But I don't think a restaurant is agritourism. Being provided a meal and sitting down at a 100-person restaurant is two totally different things. Being provided a meal is that farm in Boxwood, Mass, that you can go bring your kids to all this stuff and do hay rides, and there's a little market that they serve hot food to that you go sit on a picnic table. That's being provided a meal. Sitting down at a fully functioning restaurant is way more than being provided a meal. And, to me, New Hampshire agritourism involves attracting visitors for experiences like farm stays, pick your own, education, or events as accessory primary to farming. A restaurant is not an accessory to farming. Yes, there is food that is generated at a farm.
But not that farm.
Certainly not that farm. I don't. And to go on, it says, supported by resources from organizations like the New Hampshire Food Alliance. Oh, well, New Hampshire Food Alliance, they must know something about food. Agritourism can offer value opportunities for farms and other businesses, this is from New Hampshire Food Alliance, to generate diversified, multi-season income while offering memorable and educational farm-based experiences for visitors through activities and entertainment like farm stays, pick your own, they do that, corn mazes, they do that, festivals, that would be something that food is served at, a Deerfield Fair type thing. What about that? This is New Hampshire Food Alliance now. What about that says put a 100-person restaurant at a farm? That's my problem. Is I don't. I love the idea of it. I think, as everybody says, Londonderry needs another restaurant. I just don't see how this is agritourism. This will become, and whatever the board wants. If they disagree, they disagree, and I'll stop talking about it. Max Apples will go from a farm stand to a restaurant that you can buy some apples at. And if you think it's anything other than that, you're crazy.
I'm not disagreeing with anything that you're saying. Would it help you to get a legal opinion from someone who does this? And I don't know the answer. If I knew the answer, I'd just tell you, hey, this is the answer. Because I don't know the answer, because I think you make valid points.
Should we take a
I'm here saying I disagree. I'd like to know officially what the planning board feels like. If the planning board says, hey, a restaurant at Max Apples is agritourism, then I'll shut up and it's on to the site plan.
Well,
As
that-
one
I-
board
I think
member,
we
I
like
don't
the
think it's
idea
us.
of where it's headed,
As
we just
one
don't like
board
how it's
member.
being jammed down the throat.
I have the whole,
This is
you
what
need
it
to
is
Support a
and bow to
restaurant,
it.
it's
No,
agritourism.
we
by
like
the
the
way, we
idea of
don't
what's
want you to
being
do a
pitched.
site plan.
I love
Imagine
the
if I
idea of
said,
what's
hey,
being
T-Bones,
pitched.
you don't need a site plan? This room would be full.
So Jake, why don't we go
I'm
through
more
the
than
board?
happy to do that.
Why don't we go
So,
through the board and see
But to me, the legal opinion is irrelevant. 'cause-
I'm not asking for a legal opinion.
no, I
I'm
get-
asking.
I
I'm
know.
asking for the board to. If the board feels as though I'm wrong, okay, it's done.
Wait, I guess what I'm saying is, I feel that either way it's irrelevant because it seems like we all feel strongly about those regulations that law
No,
would
I thi-
otherwise or
I think it's
release
very
them from.
relevant because before they go through a site plan process, we need to have a very good understanding and feeling if the board feels as. And like I said, I already know how you all are what you're gonna say, but I think we need to say it.
But the elephant in the room is Nick Cardner's decision.
Yeah.
That's
No kidding.
that's the elephant in the room because the question that I would have, I could blow up this whole thing. I could blow up a whole other side of this thing because the question is if there was an AR1 lot, 8 acres, 9 acres, whatever it is, in the Kings, would they be allowed to bring in 90 to 95% of the food from an off-site farm and have a restaurant? Or would it have to go to ZBA?
Yep.
Because if you put up on the, Kelly, could you, can I ask Kelly?
Sure.
separately? Kelly, could you please, on the town map, put up the site, this particular site,
The Kings or Max?
Max?
You're gonna start the rumor now.
Put up
Tony.
Kevin's house, tell his wife it's gonna be a restaurant. So if you do the overlay of the imagery, yeah, you knew where I was going.
I got it.
Where's, on this site, on this piece of land, okay? Everything else, the town has an easement on. Okay, so it will never be anything because the town has the easement. Okay, all the white part is the easement, okay? So the middle where the little finger is right now is the building and the land that technically needs to be a farm in order to have agritourism. Where's the farm part? There is no farm on this lot, and this is the lot in question. What's the number, please? 71, what is it?
230 Mammoth Road?
The address, 230.
No, he's asking for
No.
the tax map.
Can I ask why we're trying to blow this up?
620,
We're not trying to
621.
blow it up.
I'm
We're
just,
still trying to-
I'm answering, I'm helping answer the question, because because it's confused. The question,
I'm not confused at
so
all.
that, so the question is, how is it agritourism if there's no farm on that lot?
No, the
It's
question,
a whole separate lot.
the question is a restaurant agritourism? That's my question.
Yeah, you're not wrong. What's gonna happen is that if they go forward, you're gonna have a 99-seat restaurant. Once it becomes more successful, they're going to expand the restaurant, and it's going to get larger. And if it's a good business idea, this is the beginning. You're not wrong in your analysis, right?
But if that ends up saving Max Apples, how is that a bad thing?
I didn't say it was a bad thing. I'm just saying he wasn't wrong
No,
in his
no,
analysis.
I feel like it's kind of getting.
I'm not necessarily
I'm
saying
not-
it's a
I'm not
bad thing
saying
either.
that.
Hold on, time out.
I think we're
Time
getting
out, I'm
off
talking.
course here.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing either. I'm saying I don't think it's agritourism. It's two totally different things.
Which is why I said, whenever we did, the first time, I said, go to ZBA. Go to ZBA, let's put a restaurant there, let's have fun.
Well, they went to the zoning commissioner, who said that it's agritourism. I don't know what else
Here's
they're
my
supposed to
suggestion,
do.
because this is not going anywhere unless you want to go through the board. If you want
I
a
still
legal
wanna go through
opinion
the board.
on this, which to be clear, I did not seek because I didn't think it was necessary to spend the monies on that, quite frankly, given the information that we have from our zoning administrator and based on my professional opinion. But the board is well within its right to ask for that, should you want that opinion. So,
What I want,
the board
May I
wants.
speak for a moment?
no. What I want is a consensus from the board, is what I want.
So let's do it.
Like I said, I know what the
You have that
consensus is, but
option.
let's hear it so we can move on.
A consensus, what's the consensus?
Is this is a restaurant at Max Apples, a 100-seat restaurant, not whatever it is, considered agritourism? I want yes or a no. I already know where it is, but I think we gotta get through that so we can
Yes.
move on to the next
Then
thing.
let's do it. Please.
Well, I had a question first. Is a place like La Belle's agritourism?
Yes.
Because they have a restaurant with
Yeah.
their business. So this isn't making any
It's also a
precedent.
golf course.
If I may, because of their zoning, that
You have to
question
come up
never
to the
came
mic.
up.
Mr. Commissioner, you have to come up to the mic. See, you
Appreciate
thought
that,
I was
sorry.
gonna cut you off. All I wanted you to do was
No,
come to the mic.
so in many cases, the issue of agritourism doesn't come up because if the activity is allowed in the zone, then it's never an issue. So, whether it's agritourism, I consider it to be agritourism, but it's not a legal issue because of, it was apparently allowed in the zone.
So you're saying in a LaBelle's case, it was allowed in the zone irregardless because it's a commercial zone?
And if I may, to clarify the law, because of this very issue, the legislature wanted to take all the courts out of the issue of is something agritourism or not, except for the Supreme Court. In this case, I was here giving you my opinion because the zoning administrator already gave an opinion, which agreed, with the request. But what the law says, if there is a disagreement between the town and the applicant, that can be appealed to the commissioner, who would make a determination as to whether it was agritourism or not. And then if one side or the other disagreed, that could go to the Supreme Court. That's the only way to go. In this case, I've already played my cards because the town and the applicant were in agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. So, just so we can get it on the record, can we please go through and say if you feel as though this is agritourism or not, so I can move on?
Well, could I ask the applicant, is the produce for the restaurant, the food stuffs, is it going to be coming from the farm, or is it coming from, I mean, is there any regulation of where?
It's
Only up
coming
high.
from the farm. What's grown on the farm will come from the farm and be
Okay.
used in the.
And you did mention something about slowing it down for your high season for the apples. You said something about,
There was a commissioner that said that that's an option.
Oh, yeah, modifying the hours so that, yeah, during peak season, right. There are 10 weekends in the season, in the peak season.
Yep.
To modify the hours during those times, yes.
and why would you be modifying the hours?
To keep the traffic flow and the people on site as limited.
Okay, thank you very much, I appreciate that.
So do you think it is?
So,
or isn't it?
Ann, I'd like to start with you and just get a yes or a no.
Definitely is agritourism.
Okay.
Yes.
I think it's agritourism.
Yeah, I think it is too, but I agree with your analysis.
Yes, but you're not wrong, Jake.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, for the sake of saving Mack's apples.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, and no. So, all right, we think it's agritourism. See, we needed to get through one thing before we can talk about the next.
How long did
I
it
think,
take us to
I
get
think
there?
that I think
18
the
minutes.
board, I think the board has discussed in depth the feel and the need for a full site plan analysis on this to make sure that, you know, just as we would anything else, it meets our local regulations and doesn't cause any health or safety issues to the town. Does anybody disagree with that?
And I just want to say to the applicant, again, we're sorry, this is kind of our process, and we, please don't give up on the project, just keep going.
If I could just make one final comment, because there were a couple of
The
comments
last one.
made from the board members that we were trying to shove things down people's throats.
I don't even want to.
Okay.
Well, I'm just saying-
Hold on. Nope. I'm gonna stop you because I don't even want to go there. So with that, thank you, folks.
Just going to apologize if that was
Not
the
a
case.
problem. I don't even want to go down.
That's not the intent.
Thank you.